Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk all the time about what it takes to be seen and found and heard in the digital world. You need professionals like Drago and his team at Oak City Tech. They can help you accomplish your goals, meet your new clients, and grow your business. So go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for, and they'll be able to help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, the surrounding cities. And each week, 31 chapters and about 530 members get together, and our goal is to help each other grow their business. In our local small business success story today, Paul Safrit with Solar Ed. Paul is in RD06 Profits in the Park. They meet Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. at Hope Community Church in Morrisville. Paul, how are you today? Oh, say that again. How are you, Paul?
I'm terrific, Mike. Thanks for having me. Happy Monday.
Back at you, man. Did you have a nice, long, relaxing weekend?
I did. Never long enough, but I played some golf and yeah, it's fun.
How's your game these days?
It's well over par. But have some fun. That's what it's about, right?
Are you finding incremental advances in your game?
I am. I'm getting better all the time, but man, it's a humbling game.
It's a cruel mistress. It brings us back. We'll be 21 over par, and we'll birdie the 18th hole. We're like, all right, let's play 18 more. So it's chipping and putting. Just go to the driving range one day and take your wedge and your putter and nothing else, and you'll find that strokes will be missing from your game because you're getting up and down from 30 yards and in and taking your partner's money. So that's the whole goal. Solar energy. Wow. That's it's a topic like others we've had on the show, folks we've had on the show in different industries they're in, that need some education, because sometimes we think we know what it is or isn't, and that's not always the case. And I'm assuming that's 90% of your job is just educating people.
It really is. It really is. Education is what I love doing. I love just teaching people about solar and showing it to them. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there. We get a lot of times, I heard the government is going to pay for these panels and they'll be free and they'll work at nighttime, all this crazy stuff. So we spend a lot of time kind of dispelling the magic and really telling business owners how it works, how it can benefit their business, more so than just, selling them a system or a bill of goods.
It's part of a plan, isn't it, for people when they do this and do other things, they actually want to do it, and it's part of a plan for the way they live, cost of living, and things like that?
Yeah, it really is. And for, we look really in depth with our clients at their business plans. What are their future projections? What are their costs? How can we help reduce that and become, a part of their business and a part of their family? And that's what I get a lot of enjoyment out of is, solar is a hot topic and it is interesting, right? It's kind of sexy with this new tech. But there's, like I said, there's a lot of ins and outs. It's not really commonplace to the average consumer. And that's what we spend a lot of time on, like you said, is that educational piece, the financing piece. That's really, really crucial.
I know the environment part of it is huge. And I know that saving money, the tax benefits and things like that are very important as well. But when somebody calls you and you get into a conversation, how do you know that they're very interested in moving forward with talking more about solar?
That's a good question. A lot of clients that we're getting nowadays have done some sort of outreach or education on their own, right? They've done a Google search or they know somebody nowadays that has solar. So they're a little more, they've seen it a lot more in the neighborhood, as opposed to when I first started 8 years ago. People were like, "Solar? That's magic. That doesn't we don't really know hardly anything at all." And so I would say, now a lot of our education or our beginning has started, and EV chargers and EV cars have really spurned that. The more Teslas people see, the more Elon Musk and solar panels are sort of on their mind. And that's where we kind of take the conversation.
You are still young, which is good, which means you have plenty to learn and plenty of money to make and grow 6 or 8 or 10 more businesses, right? In that world. But
Oh yeah.
so basically, you've not been doing this a long time, but the changes you've seen and the speed with which this industry is moving, got to be impressive, isn't it?
It really is. We in the industry call it the solar coaster. There's ups, there's downs, there's twists and turns. You got to pay to get on the ride. You may throw up somewhere along the way, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy being on a fast-paced, fast-moving industry. I've been in it since March of 2014, and I fell in love my very first day. It sounds maybe cheesy or corny, but I'm really, really blessed to be at a time in the world where solar is this popular, to have accumulated the knowledge that I have, and still be looking forward to the things that I can learn and do.
Does this come from years ago when you were younger and a family member talked about it or had something an involvement in the industry?
It doesn't. So it's kind of funny. I had a very Disney movie light bulb moment in my college dorm room, and started wiring solar panels from scratch. Started building them and kind of tinkering away. I built them to go on top of tailgating. So I sold them to a lot of fraternities. So instead of them running a loud, noisy generator, and they couldn't hear the girls' music, slap a solar panel on top, powers the TV and the speakers and everything. And was really fortunate enough to work with ECU's College of Business, the entrepreneurship program was just getting going there, and do a lot of seed capital venture funding type stuff. A lot of pitch competition where I learned, get the marbles out of my mouth, and build a business plan and things like that. And that was a really, really cool time. And I'll always be grateful to ECU for those opportunities.
What was your first panel like that you made, and how long did it take you, and what did it cost?
That's a great question. The first one I made, I wired it upside down. Not everything that you hear on YouTube is correct. Some people out there don't know what you're talking about, and I didn't know, and so I put the positive where the negative was supposed to go, and there might have been a little bit of electrocution involved, low voltage. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just learned through error. I learned through trial and error. Making them on top of coolers, and to charge your phone, and little small ones. Bought all the parts off Amazon, straight from China, and they're really fragile, so I had to be careful. But yeah, probably the first one probably cost me, I don't know, $70 or so. Which is terrible if you look at price per watt or something. But it was a lot of fun.
And did you sell it to these groups outright or rent it to them?
Now, renting would have been a good business model. Return on my dollar on my units. But no, I sold them outright. I even painted them. I painted them school colors, like purple and gold, and put some ECU stickers on there, and tried to really spruce it up. I think the first one I ever sold was for $850. I
Oh,
ran into the guy. Yeah, so I made a little pretty penny.
oh.
I was excited, and I sold it to my next door neighbor at my beach house, and I just saw him over the Fourth, and we were lighting fireworks with his kids. I said, "Man, I still got my first solar panel. You remember me when you make all these millions. I was your first guy," and he's an awesome guy.
Were you guys in school together?
No, this guy is an old ECU alumni. He works for a lot of the banks in Eastern North Carolina, working with farmers, and just a great guy. Um, Sold a couple of those, some to my family members, some to the professors and stuff at the university. So it was sort of where the bug bit me, I guess.
The first couple sales transactions with student groups. How did
Yeah.
who wanted it? What did they pay for it, and how long did they keep it before they destroyed it?
Now that's that last question. I don't know. The fraternities at ECU are. I wasn't in a fraternity myself, but I could kind of hang around and know the guys, and a lot of these fraternities have pools of money for tailgating or parties, especially at ECU, big party school. So I said to him, I said, look, you're gonna buy this generator for $1,000. And I think the first solar panels I sold them were $500 and $750. So it's cheaper, more you save that money and spend it on beer, and you get the same thing, but less noisy. You maybe look a little bit cleaner or cooler. Yeah, I don't know how long they lasted. I'm sure they're in some fraternity's attic somewhere at ECU.
How big were these panels?
They were fairly large. They're about the size of maybe an office desk. They would go on top of a truck, so on top of like an F-150 or something. Um,
And then you would wire what you've got some cable that connects that to the speaker or whatever they're playing the music out of?
Yep. So I would take the panel and put it through what's called a charge controller, kind of like a little brains of the operation. That would go to like basically a car battery, a big car battery. And then you have an inverter, which allows you to plug into that battery. And then you could plug in, speakers, TVs, whatever you want. And that's what a lot of these guys would do is they'd have big speakers out there, just playing music or watching the game if they were too drunk to get in. And it was a lot of fun seeing that in use for the very first time.
Very nice. What did you on the first 4, 3 or 4 or 5 transactions of building them and selling them, what did you learn?
I learned. I think the biggest thing that I learned is the passion that I had for the technology, and that's really where I fell head over heels in love with the tech, the hardware. I tell everybody nowadays I'm a solar nerd. I really love the how it works. I think if you build a business, you need to understand your product from the very base building blocks. And I'm really fortunate to be able to know what's the inner workings of a solar panel and a solar system, and from the very first part of my career. um, so that's what I learned most, and then took the business applications that and added those on, learning about profit and loss statements and how to build a website, how to prepare your taxes, a lot of that types of hiring, HR, marketing. I was really fortunate to kind of build that on to the product knowledge that I was able to learn, and kind of marry the two.
And the panels you sold to the student groups, just from a, logistical standpoint, how long did those panels have to charge before you can use them? Because I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, they're just charging up a battery. So even if, let's say, like cloud came over, they'd still be able to run, a TV and all that type of stuff. But they charge fairly quickly. I think the first couple panels were maybe 100 watts or so. So that would run a TV and speakers off of just the panel itself. So the battery was more so just for if it did rain, or if it was a cloudy day or something.
And, the $70, price of, putting it together slowly or quickly went down.
I'd say it definitely went up first. I had to make my mistakes on, where to purchase stuff, and oh, this doesn't fit. I should have checked this. So my cost of materials for some of these probably, right above what I sold for, $100 or less or something. But uh, gradually over time, I was able to really figure it out and get kind of a process going, to launch that.
And how did the relationship with the university come about?
So I was really fortunate. I worked through college as the business manager for the East Carolinian, which is the newspaper on campus. So I was in charge of all the advertisement sales, both online and in the newspaper. Um, and then through that, I think I read an ad about, hey, we're starting this entrepreneurship program. It's called the Miller School of Entrepreneurship at ECU. It's a tremendous program, and was able to meet those professors and changed my major to entrepreneurship, to small business management. And then they had built what was called the Pirate Entrepreneurship Challenge, which was, I think it's now up to, I think that the top prizes are well into the six figures, of funding that you can receive. And it was a sort of a three-stage competition, pitch competition. I was really fortunate to be a finalist in that competition. I think 2 years in a row, I was a finalist.
I saw a picture doing some research yesterday. I saw a picture
Oh,
of about the 8, I think it's 8, there's 7 or 8 people in there, assuming there's like a professor and the other finalists, and there's this
uh-huh.
one tall redheaded guy in that picture. I'm assuming that was you, or you,
It,
out in the
it
sun a
might have
lot?
been. I did a lot of times I get questions on that picture because they have an orange blazer.
Yes.
Um, I found an orange blazer at J.C. Penney. I think it was probably $75. I think they would have given it away for free, to be honest. And the guy at the desk said, "Oh, it doesn't even need any alterations." And I said, "Well, it must be fate. I've got to have it. My logos were orange. My favorite color was orange, so was cool. I could kind of stand out at this competition and get a lot of, oh, that actually looks fairly sharp. Or maybe they were just saying, maybe they thought I looked
Yeah.
terrible, but I didn't care. Probably looked like I played for the Knicks, with orange and blue on. But my buddy said I looked like a speed cone, a construction cone. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Those competitions.
Are you part of that program now, being a successful alum? And I'm hoping that they pick your brain and bring you back.
I am. Every year I'm fortunate enough to work with another student who's competing in that competition through that program. So last year I worked with a kid who was starting a company called Booze Juice, which is like an alcoholic beverage, which at ECU did phenomenal.
Yeah.
He had a ton of gross sales, and we were working to get him distribution, to get him some licensing stuff, and then ultimately to get him into retailers, right, to get him into gas stations and bars and places like this. And he's done really, really well. He's since graduated. He was on the football team. So I always really enjoyed giving back to the university that gave me, so much.
And did you sample the product to make sure you knew what you were talking about?
Of course, I had to. I had to. You can't be giving out bad product. Like I said, the building blocks. You got to understand the building blocks of business, right? So, no, it's terrific. It's called Booze Juice.
Is it still around, and how good is it?
It is. I don't think it's for the wine sommelier. I don't think it's for your high dollar drinker. But the college kids seem to like it. Kids my age seem to enjoy it. It's kind of like a Capri Sun with alcohol in it.
Okay. All right. Hey, no, got to know what your audience wants and just, yeah, build it for them. Was that kind of a forerunner to Shark Tank?
It was very much like a Shark Tank. We would have a board of community members, professors, deans, and they were tough. It was not easy questions. We would really get into the nitty gritty of products and business plans and operating agreements and stuff like that. Um, it was a lot of fun. I look back on those memories really, really fondly.
In your first year of that competition, when you're standing up in front of them and pitching the panel what you want to do, and I'm sure they're just peppering you with questions, what were some of the most difficult questions for you to answer?
Yeah, it was getting back to our beginning conversation. It was all education. I had a little display, a little, hey, this is how it works. And that's basically how I pitched it. Said, look, this is a small version, a portable version of what you see out in the fields, right? And I equated them to computer systems. I said, hey, data centers used to be these massive, large fields, right? But what's happening now is solar and new technology like this is getting smaller and into the hands of individuals, whether that be homeowners or business owners. And this puts it right into their hands so that they can walk around with it instead of having it tethered to a property, right? Similar to like how your phone progressed from that original large, computer center.
Are you still
So
making panels like that?
I don't anymore. I have fun little side projects on weekends. I have a buddy that just bought an RV and some land. He parked it out in Nightdale, and we built an off-grid system one weekend with some leftover panels I had from a job site. So I'll tinker around. I still have that itch, but luckily nowadays I don't electrocute myself. I learned that lesson.
And you make them buy the product, right?
Exactly. Yes, it's much more than $750 now. But
Are panels getting smaller?
they are. they're getting way smaller. I've got a bunch laying around the house, as any good solar person should. And you look at some from even a few years ago, they're several square feet larger than what they are today, and the efficiency's gone up, right? The power per sort of square foot has really come alive, and we've been excited in the industry to see advancements like Tesla's solar shingles. GAF, the roofing manufacturer, just came out with the solar shingle. That's really exciting. So we're seeing more and more progressions all the time. Like I said, it's a roller coaster. Things change for us. Seems like every hour.
Yeah. In the solar panel world, and I'm not getting on a soapbox on this, but what countries are ahead of the curve on this as far as production, knowledge, and growth?
Yeah, I mean, I would say production. A lot of them are made in Asia. You know, a lot of them are made in China and Japan and Singapore, where they have a lot of these large manufacturing facilities. There are some terrific domestic and local manufacturers. There's a great one in Austin, Texas, called Mission Solar. Um, there's another one in Arizona called First Solar. That's actually a really large publicly traded company. There's some German stuff, and I would say where the implementation and the policies and that side of things are best is in Europe, in London and Germany and Paris. They're fully rolling out solar. They haven't put a lot of these um, policy restrictions on things, because that's equally as important to us. It's not sometimes getting our hands on them. It's making it make sense for the consumer, making it easy for them to install.
Do they get it better than we do as far as the value of solar, or are they just quicker to pivot as a country or a region than maybe the US is?
I think they were probably quicker to pivot, because they're more centralized countries, right? They can make their own more autonomous decisions than ask, all 17 countries in the EU,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's probably a big piece of it. But places like the Netherlands and Germany and Paris are definitely more environmentally conscious, I would say, as a whole than the US is, um, which is not necessarily or a good thing. I mean, I think it's just how they're geared, right?
Is this a generational thing? I know you probably have a tough time selling to my generation, but is that part of the way you guys were raised and how you think?
I think it is. I think it's the way that my generation was raised is really curious, and we enjoy change a lot more. We enjoy kind of shaking things up and looking at things. But to that same point too, Mike, I've had lots and lots of clients that are in their later stages of life, and that are wanting to protect themselves against inflation and rate increases, and everybody wants to save money, right? So I always tell people, regardless of where you sit on the climate change issue or where you sit politically, everybody wants to keep more money in their pocket and not sending it to their utility company.
Yeah.
That's pretty across the board. So that's where we can target a lot of different clients across the country.
Now I want to get to you and I had what have we known each other a month, maybe 6 weeks or so. First conversation we
Seems
had.
like a lifetime.
I know. Yeah. Because nowadays it's like, wait, did we meet before COVID, during COVID? Well, I forget if it's
Yeah,
2 years, 2.5 years. I don't know. But I want to get to our first conversation in a second. But you had
sure.
mentioned that you were selling advertising. It was called the East Carolinian publication.
That's right.
And you were, if your bio is correct, you were the employee of the semester every semester.
That is correct. That's correct. Um, One would think it was not a very big program, and it wasn't. I think there were probably, I don't know, 4 to 6 of us in the advertising department. Um, but I just kind of got a knack for selling. I would go to these bars and apartment complexes and say, "Look, I know you have a budget to advertise. You need to get in front of these college students," and I would somehow convince them that college students read the newspaper.
They don't.
Um, they just really don't. I
They
think our
don't.
biggest, we would track, which unit sold the most, or how many papers were taken out. And it was always near the art department. And we figured out that they were just using it as, lay down to get dirty on the paint. Um, so, it was quite a time. I would be the only kid in class before, class started reading the newspaper, looking for, oh, that's my ad.
Yep.
I'm getting paid next week.
Yep.
So it was really nice. We did some digital stuff as well, but, I really have a ton of appreciation to the university for that program and that opportunity.
So what kind of money did you pull in back then?
I did well for myself. I did well for myself. There were certainly ebbs and flows and seasons of it where, around leasing season, I'd always do really well because all the apartments would compete and get in. And, around, say, like homecoming, when a lot of places, the bars and stuff would advertise. My commission wasn't anything crazy, but, it was probably $1,000 a week or somewhere around there.
Wow.
It was pretty decent.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
it
that
was
was a
solid.
student newspaper?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Hey, $1,000 is $1,000, but you're right though. You got to get the clients competing against each other. So if you tell the
Yeah.
apartment complexes, we got room for 2 of you, we'll start the bidding at this number.
Yeah, yeah, they did full color. You guys need to do full color,
Oh, nice. Yep.
Oh yeah, I had it all worked out.
You've always had a plan, haven't you?
I at least tried to.
There you go.
It may not go how I planned, but at least I had one in the beginning.
Yeah, there were a couple things from our original conversation that we talked about that I had not even thought about, which is why I enjoy one-to-ones in BNI like this, because you learn something. You were talking about a company or a business you would either talk to or were going to talk to about their garage and setting that up for solar for car chargers for their employees. Did I have that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. So we do a lot of their solar carports. So think about when you're in a parking lot, right? It's just a covered parking, and the part that is covered is all solar panels, right? And it's got big steel pipes going to the ground. And then underneath there, this is the project I think we were talking about. We did in New Jersey, maybe last month. I had 12 car chargers underneath that carport that the business would then charge money to cars to charge their cars up, whether it's Teslas or BMWs or whatnot. So it's a big revenue generator for them to receive money, and then it's a huge tax savings, especially in New Jersey and New York, where we do a lot of work, as well as down here in the Carolinas, because of the tax savings and the depreciation. And then it's just cool because your car doesn't get hot or doesn't get rainy or snowy up in New Jersey. So those are really, really cool projects. We do a lot of those.
Are the sales of electric cars rising gradually or at a healthy pace, to your knowledge?
They are, to my knowledge, exponential. I think we're seeing a real explosion in on the electrification side of things. Every major car manufacturer has at least one, if not several, different models of electric cars now. You're seeing them more and more with the Ford Lightning. That was a big splash. Volkswagen has one. Audi has several. Lexus has several. Mercedes have a few. So even your higher end car manufacturers are getting into them, but so are your Fords and your GMs. So that's what's really exciting to me. I obviously keep up with a lot of that stuff, and there are reports that are as optimistic as thinking that there will be half electric cars by 2030, half the
Wow.
cars on the road. I don't know that I completely agree with that, but I think it's, you look at how many hybrids there are nowadays compared to how many there were 30 years ago,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And I know one
Um,
of the knocks on the solar and the electric industry, for cars at least, is the assumption is you can't drive from Wilmington to LA with an electric car because there aren't enough places to plug in to charge up.
Yeah, that's, like I would say that's where, again, education is still needed. Especially the Biden administration and past administrations understand the infrastructure needs that go along with electric cars. North Carolina just got, I believe, the largest amount of federal funds across the nation to install EV chargers. I think it was $2 billion, $2.5 billion.
Wow.
Because we've got as you and I both know, Mike, we've got a ton of roads, right? We've got 40, we've got 95. And to electrify all those areas is going to take an investment, and the federal government made that investment to be able to get around town and across the country. So I think it's coming, if not kind of already here.
And what happened? What's the lifespan of a of an electric battery, and what happens to that battery when it's no longer usable?
That's a really good question. Batteries tend to have about 10 to 15-year lifespans, which is not too far off from a transmission of a car
Mhm.
that you're running all the time.
Yep.
At the end of their lifetime as a car battery, a lot of these batteries are put into wind turbines, so that they can be used as large battery banks for wind turbines. Uh, that's at least what I've been told. I'm on the solar side, not the wind
Yep.
side, but they definitely have a use at the end. At the end, and the same with solar. Solar panels have a 25-year lifespan, and after that, they'll just degrade. I tell my clients, this is like a tattoo. It's going to go up on your roof.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
we're not going to move it. We're not going to change it unless we need to go up and change the roof, and we'll put it back up. And at the end of their life, if the clients want to remove them, they're either recyclable or they can get sent to third world countries to power fields and areas across the world. So that's for me what's really exciting is it is a fully renewable resource, right? That circle closes after that product's been used, which is unlike a lot of other products.
How quick is this industry growing for two groups of people? One is folks like you who that this is who you are. And then
Yeah.
others like, "Oh, I think I can make a quick buck," and they don't really either understand it or love it.
You know, I'll answer it kind of in two parts. When I was in college, solar was really on a huge boom. Then it kind of lulled out for a while, and then COVID happened and it boomed again. When I was in college, I read a statistic by the Department of Labor that the industry was growing at 70% annual, year over year for 5 years, just insane. Um, then it kind of took a lull there, so maybe 2018 to 2020. And then to your point, yeah, Mike, a lot of people were stuck at home and wanted a change of pace,
Mm.
like we've seen across the country and across the world, career wise. And a lot of them became what you might call independent solar agents or solar salespeople, with large national firms, so that a lot of them could sit there and sell solar in their pajamas on a Zoom call. Which again is nothing wrong with that. I've done a lot of them myself, and I've trained a lot of people to do it myself. You just have to have the education and the training, and the ethics to do that the right way,
Mm.
right? Because solar is so new, unfortunately, a lot of people across the country have been misled.
Yeah.
And luckily, we're seeing more regulation and more scrutiny, on the industry, which I think is really good because it keeps the good apples good and hopefully kicks the bad apples to the curb.
What's the best kind of, regulation you want to see in the industry?
So I think it's twofold. I think there needs to be more unified language. I think there needs to be like I take this to account when you sell a mortgage. There are things that you can say. There are things that you cannot say. Those calls and things are recorded and monitored by places like the SEC. And then I think on the licensing side, I think it needs to be a lot. You need to be able to look at companies and make sure that they have the proper licensing, that they are doing things that are in the best interest of clients. I'm not one for over regulation, but I am one that we all need to play on an even
Mm.
playing field,
Yeah.
for the best of the consumer.
So let's go back to the younger days of young Paul Safrit
All
here.
right.
You were a star football player at Sanderson, and you were a defensive end, and according to my research, Your senior year, you were right around 6'3" and a buck 79.
I was still 6'3". I'm a little heavier than 179. Uh, but yeah, I was kind of a tall, not necessarily skinny guy, but I was tall, so on defensive end I could kind of get around guys, and
Mm,
I played a lot on the offensive line, which was good to be able to play both sides of the ball. I would know what the guy across from you was thinking,
mm.
what he was going to try to do. So um, I loved it. I was a captain a couple years. I don't know that I would necessarily say I was a star, but I was a guy that always knew the playbook, and was I think a really exceptional teammate, looking out for all the guys on the team. Um,
What
our first 3 years, I think we won 3 games total.
ooh,
So we were not very good. Then we got a new coach from Carey High School who led us to our first playoff berth. We won a playoff game and then lost in the second round of playoffs, which was a heartbreaker. We lost right at the end, but yeah, I'm a huge sports guy, and playing football all through high school, middle school has a lot to do with that.
well, the debate on how good you were, I'll leave that up to you, but you're good enough to have your own ESPN recruiting page, and they
I
had
was.
they had you with a 5.41 40-yard time. Would you say that's
It was.
close to correct?
I would say. I mean, there were lasers and everything involved. It was out at Bank of America Stadium, where the Panthers play. It was very cold. It was very cold. I think we got to run the 40 once.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I think my best time was probably closer to 5.2 or so. Um, but yeah, I mean, for a lineman, that's fairly decent. I beat
Yeah,
Tom Brady's, 40.
I know. Most people did. Did you was that a summer camp?
It was. So I was fortunate to go to several summer camps. I went to one at NC State, one at Wake Forest, and then I went to several at Duke. And Duke had a really incredible program. That was probably my favorite camp. It was a 2 or 3 day camp. And to be in those facilities and be around David Cutcliffe
Mm.
was a lot of fun. That camp was specifically for offensive and defensive linemen. So we got a lot of time and a lot of exposure to the players and coaches and stuff like that.
Did you have offers from schools in the area?
I never got really to that level. I was in some talks with some kind of obscure D3 schools. For like, hey, do you want to walk on? Do you, we're sort of interested in this, that, and the other. And then somewhere in my senior year, I think it was before this season, I broke. It was either my hand or my foot. I broke them both at one point in my career, and that sort of nixed maybe any thoughts or offers, as far as playing in college.
Had you stayed healthy, would you have gone to a D3 school to play?
I was seriously considering it at the time. I was trying to improve my game and trying to really bulk up in the weight room, and my passion was there. I was sort of in that area where I think a lot of high school players are, where's my commitment going to be?
Mm.
And then where's my skill level going to be in comparison to other people. Right. And at the end of the day, I took my education really seriously as well. So, I saw ECU as not only just a party school, but a place that the state was investing a lot of money into. And I knew there would be good programs, and had some people going over there, and was proud to be a Pirate, even though I wasn't on the football team.
That's okay. Let's stay on the checklist of skills you have, okay?
Sure.
You had
Okay.
a you
Check.
had a Facebook post in June where you were building a chicken coop with a friend.
I am. It's still under construction. So I just moved into a new house here off Falls and News, and we're gonna hopefully get 6 chickens, and I'm running around the backyard. Got a nice big backyard, so I love building things. So whether I get my hands on some lumber or some metal, I always like working with my hands.
Is this a solar powered chicken coop?
It probably will be, in all honesty.
It better
I
be.
had built a solar powered doghouse for a charity event. I don't know if you saw that in
I,
your
I
researching.
missed that one, but I like it. Keep talking.
Yeah, it had Bluetooth speakers, it had a fan, it had lights. We were going to put heating in it, but we didn't have time. And it was a terrific event with a lot of architects and builders. It was down at Bowstring Brewery. It's just probably 6-8 months ago now. That was a blast. It was a lot of fun.
I will I will believe that dog owners would purchase that for their dog. Truly
Oh
believe
yeah.
that. Yep. And that probably got good money too.
Yeah, it did. It went to a good cause, and they auctioned everything off. There were some other really cool designs there. We took home first place again, so I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of our team.
Bluetooth.
Of course, yeah, you have to.
Because you want the dog, maybe they like soothing music at night, right? Help them sleep. And
Well, and as everybody's walking around, we're playing dog related music. So we played Who Let the Dogs Out. We played doggy jams. A lot of stuff like that. It was pretty funny.
what was who had the song? This is like back in the 60s. They call it Puppy Love. Uh, Paul Anka. Yep. There you go. You were also a previous mechanic,
I was.
which goes
I
back to
was.
you wanting to build things.
Yep. So all through high school, I worked at a place called 5 Point Service Center, which is right there in like kind of the Hayes Barton neighborhood as you're going towards Glenwood South. So really, again, just got an opportunity from a local business owner, and learned how to work on cars, learned how to change oil, fix tires, do brakes, clean up the shop. You know, had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun getting real dirty in my overalls, and there's nothing quite like a hard day's work. You might be only making $8-9 an hour, but it was still really worth it to me.
If you could put solar, excuse me, put solar panels on any celebrity's house, whose
Ooh,
house would you want to head up that project for?
ooh, that's a really good one. Matthew McConaughey. I think he'd be a great guy to have some bourbon with.
Yeah. Just sit on the back
And he's
porch.
out, he's out in the Texas sun, so he'd probably have a perfect house for it.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Matthew, if you're listening, um, call me.
And I'm sure he has some wonderful thoughts on solar energy and a ton of other issues that be worth us sipping that bourbon, right?
I think so. I think so.
What in 5 years, what will we not be surprised to hear that you are doing in the solar world?
Good question.
Would you have invented something by then or running um, a big
Hopefully we
company?
hear that. Hopefully that we hear that my company's well into the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And I don't think that's unsurprising given the curve that the industry is on how commonplace solar is going to be in 5 years. Um, I think solar truly will be on every home and every business that can have it in the country. It's just really a matter of time. And so hopefully that's what we hear.
Very nice. We've been putting your number up there. So, folks, if you have any questions about solar, Paul's happy to chat with you about that and educate you some more. What is, if somebody listening or watching is even remotely interested in solar power for their house or business, what's the first thing they should ask themselves or look into?
I think the first thing you should ask yourself is how much am I spending on electricity? A lot of clients that we meet with have all their bills or most of their bills on auto pay, and they're
Yes.
out of sight, out of mind, right? And I'm all for ease of payment, but especially with inflation and especially with companies like Duke Energy asking for rate increases, you need to be cognizant of what you are paying for electricity. If you're not using a lot and you're not paying a lot, maybe solar is not a good option. But I have clients, I've got a client in sort of north of Wake County who pays between $700 and $800 a month for his power.
Ooh.
That's a client we can seriously help out. But anybody in between, if you're spending over $150 some months on power. It's definitely worth considering solar for the tax advantages and the added value to your home or business.
It's funny you mentioned auto pay. This is the second time this has come up in, I think, about 5 days. And this was a conversation with somebody completely different about auto pay. We're talking about expenses for business. They're like, most people forget what they pay because it's auto pay and they just know it comes out every month. And sometimes they may not notice if the price even goes up.
Yeah, yeah. Your vendor or whoever decides to charge you more, there's an accounting issue or something.
Yep.
Or yeah, I mean, you look at utilities across the board are always going to charge more every year, but on top of inflation, that hurts you more.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely something to take out of your auto pay and at least pay it every month so you have an eyeball on it.
Yep. No, it's good advice because you out of sight, out of mind, right? You forget about it.
Yeah.
But Paul, we've enjoyed the time today. Appreciate the education on solar. Hope folks took some notes and are thinking about that because it is real for the environment and for their pocketbook. And I know that you've got a bunch of cool things coming up, which we'll keep an eye on. Paul's group, again, the Prophets in the Park, Tuesday mornings, 9 a.m., Hope Community Church in Morrisville. If you want to meet him personally and some other folks in his chapter, please come out and visit them. It's a fun group. They produce and they heckle each other, which is my kind of meeting.
It is. We got the best of both worlds. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, Mike. This was a blast. This was a lot of fun.
Yep. So best of luck the rest of 2022, and we will see everybody next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.